Okay, I'm from Visualise. We are a virtual reality content production studio. That's our logo. So we work in this cutting edge area of VR and 360 video production. Most of that is delivered on a kind of headset like this. And how many people have seen this headset? Is this just completely normal now? No? Everyone's looking at me blankly. Anyone? You've seen it? Show of hands? Yeah? Who's tried it? Who's actually been inside there? Been in the Matrix? Not so many. There's some headsets over here, and we can do a bit of a demo afterwards if you like. You can see some of our stuff. But I don't know if many people know this, but all this is a phone stuck into a kind of plastic box with two lenses in it. I don't know if everyone kind of knew that, but yeah. This is kind of part of what we're going to talk about in terms of VR and our work. But before I go into that, I might show you some of our stuff. So I think I just press this, and then we get the nice jazzy soundtrack as well. So what you're seeing here is the stretched out, what we call the equi-rectangular image that then is stretched into the sphere that you experience as a virtual reality in VR. That's Tim Henman and Lindsay Davenport playing tennis. Tim Henman swears quite a lot. That's what I was really surprised by when we worked with him. We should turn the music up, it's good. That's a Lamborghini. That's these amazing gardens in Singapore. This works much better in the VR because you can look down with him, but actually he just sort of puts his head in front of you there. But this is the reel we've got in the headsets that we can have a look at afterwards. All right. So, as probably most of you have heard, there is a huge buzz around VR at the moment, and I mean this is just one example. It's predicted to generate $150 billion in the next 5 years. There's a huge amount of kind of predictions about what it's going to do, and I think part of the problem we have at Visualise is that means that a lot of people assume that it is a super high-tech medium, which is where this sort of all links to automation. But actually what we're doing is an incredibly hand-labored craft process. All those images you just saw is shot using 6 different cameras, and those 6 different camera channels are stitched into one image. So in many senses, we're still in the stage of a kind of craft technology. It's most of the work we do, actually, in terms of hours, is kind of electronic sewing, like it's really like hand sewing. So I think I can show you here, and I think this is only about a minute long, but you'll see this is one of my colleagues trying to patch the seam between 2 camera channels. And you'll see how it's probably a little bit more interesting to be doing it, but watching it's probably really quite boring. You can see how on this tiny little, like, I think that's a bar in the middle of a, what are those called, ski lift things. He's adjusting tiny, tiny little frames of a mask to cover over the scene between two images. And at the moment, there is no way of automating this. You can create workflows which improve your efficiency, but actually this is just handwork because you'd have to have some kind of AI that could interpret an image, that would understand what the image was if you were to really automate it. And then you'll see, it is really painstaking. I don't know how these people do it. It's really like 10 hours a day of doing that. And they go, oh yeah, think it's nearly done? Yeah. Nah. So this is another example of where, like, what we're doing every day is still handcrafted technology. What my colleague is doing here is using that sun to stabilize the image. He's using that as a reference point to stabilize a skiing image. So what's happened here is the sun has gone behind a flag, which, if you were to try and automate this, an AI or an algorithm wouldn't know the sun was the sun. You could probably tell a little bit, but it would still interpret like large white areas as the sun. It would be too confusing. This is still like very much a human task. And I think you can see a little bit of I think this is actually in Nuke. Yeah, this is in one of the Foundry's tools. Yeah, he's laboriously going through improving keyframing on that incredibly complicated path. And that path is following the sun. That path is then added to the sphere that you watch in the VR to stabilize it, if that makes sense. So in the next 12 months or 6 months even, there's a huge amount of hardware and software that's going to automate a lot of what we're doing. That's mainly got to do with cameras like this, which is the Emerge camera, which is only renderings have been released of it, but Lytro releasing this camera, it has, actually you don't know how many separate camera lenses within those different rings, but that will send one image out, which completely changes how we produce VR and who produces VR. So what that's going to do is bring costs down, sort of proportionally. Like the costs of producing VR have been dropping like in the last 12 months, in the last 6 months even, because everybody producing it has developed their own methods and there have been more releases, there's been more tools come out. So what's happening is the cost is going down, but at the same time, the creative expectations, as it's no longer just a, let's say, a demonstration of technology, all the same creative expectations of what any other media product would be able to provide are expected in VR. So we're finding that as our costs are dropping, actually our budgets are having to rise because of the expectations of our clients and the extra services we need to provide them. So the response in many ways to any automation has to be creativity for us. It's going to be a case where more and more producers are able to produce VR, so we need to be as creative as we can in how we develop a language, in how we make sense of VR as a product which is meaningful for people to produce, and even down to the minutiae of how we deal with things like edits. There's not really a language for editing in VR yet. This is one example here we're pretty sure it works, but it's using physical interaction with the camera to edit images. So what's happening is here is you're in a beach, you're a poolside scene, this beach ball flies up and hits the camera or your face when you're in VR, and then that cuts you to the next scene. That's a kind of small example of, a wider creative question. So what's next for VR is, as more uniform it becomes as a medium, like a language will emerge. And this is going to be something where there could be a moment like what Citizen Kane did for cinema some 60 years ago. VR will become a language that is widely understood. It'll become a language which is widely accessible by all content producers. It's going to be even a language which is accessible by user-generated producers. There are new cameras coming out, which are effectively just like iPhones with 2 lenses on either side. So what we're kind of waiting for, I guess, in VR overall is a moment when the language becomes public and is no longer kind of niche to small groups like us. But I guess for us to succeed in that, yes, we need to use the efficiency of automation to drive our creativity. And I think that's me. Yeah, that's me.